crowded.
I know what you're all here for today. You want to talk about what Iowans said in the last election, and that's let's put Iowans back to work, put together a budget that respects Iowans' priorities in terms of education and healthcare, and putting Iowans back to work. So I want to say the Republican budget proposals that are out there locking the state into a 2-year austerity budget doesn't make a lot of sense for Iowa and won't help us out of this economic recession that the state's in. So that's what I want to talk about today. I suspect some of you may have some other interest in what you want to talk about. But let me one more time say, the map doesn't matter. It's the issues that matter. It's the issues that determine what happens in 2012. And we think the Republicans are wrong. They're focusing on cutting back Iowa's investment in our own future, taking away opportunities from kids, laying off teachers, taking health care away from people that really need it, and walking away from our job creation efforts. And that's what really matters today, not the map, what the issues are.
What's the reaction of your members to the map?
Obviously, the reaction to the map is mixed. Some people go, as a matter of fact, I looked at some of the numbers on my district. It is exactly the same. Not just a little bit, it's exactly the same. So it's as good or it's as bad as it has always been.
You said earlier that you would like to find some way to convince members to approve the first map unless it was somehow badly skewed. But for your first blush, is this something you convince your members to approve?
Well, at first blush, I'm not going to blush. I'm going to look at the data. Our folks are analyzing the data. As you know, the maps come out without political data entered into the equation. We will certainly look at that political data, but the process Iowa has is fair and reasonable, and I offer as proof of that. You know, in most states, the redistricting process determines the lay of the political land for a decade. What happens in Iowa? In the middle of the 90s, Republicans took the majority away from the Senate Democrats. Right in the middle of a redistricting cycle, not at the start of it. And in the middle of the 2000s, Democrats took the majority away from the Republicans. We have a fair process that produces we are the purplest of purple states, very competitive politically, and so this process has worked well, and based on past history, the maps don't matter, the issues matter.
So where do we go from here?
Well, where we're going to go is we're going to go back to the budget. We're going to try and pass a responsible budget. We're going to let the commission meet. We have a temporary redistricting advisory commission that's holding public hearings across the state. Next week, they will then come back with either a set of recommendations or pass on the information that they gathered at those public hearings across the state. That information's out there for you folks there. I think they're also across the state a number of ICN sites where other folks can participate if a hearing's not being held in your own community. So I encourage people to do that.
Representative McCarthy, with 9 different districts in the House of at least 2 Republican pairings, do you have a lot of hope that the House side would approve the current map?
Don't know yet. We have told our caucus, and mean it sincerely, that we've got this commission that's going to go around the state next week and hold, I think it's 4 hearings, and then come back and issue a report. And we want to just keep our powder dry, so to speak, until we get that report back to see what that report is. In terms of political effects, there's going to be winners and losers on both sides. If the maps were drawn fairly, there's probably going to be equal headaches on both the Republican and Democratic side in terms of people getting thrown in together and districts changing quite a bit. But we haven't had a chance to analyze all that yet, so we're just going to wait and get that report back and then agree with what Senator Grossman said, that it is a good system. And I've already looked at the maps, and obviously I'm a human being, so I would say, ooh, how do these districts change? I've noticed a couple things that look kind of good, and I've noticed a couple things that look pretty bad, and so far it looks to be kind of a wash, as best I can tell.
For your district personally, is that what you mean?
No, just districts in general around the state.
You said a wash?
the best I can tell right now, there's good and bad in both sides, the best what I see so far.
What is the psyche of legislators when you watch The Price is Right, or a game show in which somebody knows what they have and they're offered something mysterious instead of what they have? What is the psyche of legislators? Do they want to see a second map, or do they want to go with what they see in the first?
And please use a price of right. That's right.
Go ahead, Bob. I was thinking more of deal or no deal. You know, and the trouble is we have three different entities that get a say on one plan. Any one of the three can say no deal. The governor can say no deal, the House can say no deal, or the Senate can say no deal. My caution to members, to people looking at this, is map 1 may have some concerns, but it behooves everybody to take a cold hard look and maybe a hard swallow and go, but overall it's fair, and the second map might not be as fair. I am relatively confident that in the end, the Republicans in Iowa will not want to punt this to the Supreme Court of Iowa, just kind of based on a few events over the past few years.
So what are you saying? You seem to be saying that you're going to be encouraging your members to find a way to support this map.
I think once we look at the political data, we have to make the evaluation. Is it even if you kind of go, oh, that's kind of uncomfortable? Well, maybe the second map is really uncomfortable, and that then invites a third map, which becomes fairly messy.
You know,
You're telling.
Go ahead.
you talking to Mike?
Yeah, so you're telling us that you're going to encourage your members to try to find a way to support this map.
Again, once we've gone through, hearing what the public has to say, and putting all the political data in and taking that into consideration, our evaluation needs to be whether it meets the criteria of the law, whether it's a fair map, and like I say, maybe it's a bit of a hard swallow, but unless it's a really hard swallow, we probably ought to try and improve the first map. Yes, that's the point. But we got to gather the data first.
You know, looking at my own district, probably doesn't mean a lot in the whole scheme of things, but I'm going from a 30% Democratic district to a 20% Democratic district. And so, but I think in northwest Iowa, the Republicans, where there's a lot of Republicans in northwest Iowa, but I don't know that they're going to be very joyful about putting Steve King and Tom Latham in the same district. That's probably not going to go down very well.
Well, I assume the big winner in this is North American Van Lines, because about half the congressional delegates moved.
Well, that's good. You know, in my district, the way it's drawn is 140 miles from one corner to the other, you know.
The Iowa Realtors Association has registered in support of this. Yeah.
You know, I just like to, and this probably is, I'd tell this regardless if it wasn't at a press conference, but I was at an ag meeting in Florida a year and a half ago, and there were 600 people there. I believe there was only 3 or 4 Iowans. But anyway, the last panel, some guy from some southern state got up and told where he was from, and his question was, how are we ever going to straighten out the mess in Washington, D.C.? Well, Charlie Stenholm was on the panel, and an undersecretary for Vilsack talked about farm. He said, as soon as every state reapportions like Iowa. So I took that as a compliment, and that's being recognized nationwide on what we do here and how we do it.
Senator Kibbe, what are your thoughts about being tossed in with Senator Johnson? How's that
I
affect
don't
you?
have a problem with that.
Would you just go ahead and run against him?
Well, I haven't made up that decision. This map is not going to make it my mind up.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with what I do. But, you know, but we're also here about the jobs that we started talking about in the early weeks of the session. And I'm still working, and many others, on renewable fuels to incent E15 and B5. And the Ways and Means Committee, hopefully next week, will have a bill on that. And we also passed out, what might be some controversy in it, and that's the bill that deals with agriculture. Out of the Ag Committee this week, we're going to continue to work on that. There's some questions in that bill, whether parts of that are constitutional, and whether, and we're working with Attorney General's office and the county attorneys and various people And hopefully that we can continue to work on that bill and pass the bill and get it to the governor. As we all know, and how important, whether it's crops or whether it's livestock, it's what this state depends on. It's what we're known for. We got 25% of grady land in this country, and so those to me are real issues. And so we're going to continue to work on it.
How big a factor is...
I want to say one thing in just about 30 seconds, just because we're talking about maps and things. Very briefly, at this point, last year we were effectively done. We had passed a balanced budget. Because of government reorganization, we had weathered the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We weathered the storm. At this point, now, this year, instead of being done, the school district started issuing pink slips last week to notify teachers that they're going to be laid off. There does not appear to be a roadmap in sight right now, at least from the House Republicans, to make sure that we stop the bleeding that's going to occur in 2/3 of our school districts, massive layoffs. And what are we doing to deal with it? We're going to debate abortion this afternoon. Yet another divisive issue that tears at the fabric of our society. And it's been a very disappointing session for people who like to work on good government type issues and make sure that we take care of our priorities of education, healthcare. We just haven't done it in the House. And so here we go again this afternoon, another divisive issue. That's very disappointing.
Speaking of abortion, what is going to be House Democrats' approach on that bill? Are you going to paper the bill with a lot of amendments? Are you going to propose the life of conception amendment?
No, when these issues come down to issues of people's conscience, of their faith, and people will vote their conscience and vote their district. I suspect the vast majority of our caucus will be opposed to the bill because it does have potential court ramifications by the way it defines life that could potentially ban contraception. It also has no exceptions for rape or for incest. And the way that it's drafted on the life exception, arguably there's no exception for life of the mother. That's extreme. So I think that's where the bulk of the caucus will be on the argument. But we're not going to play games with it's a serious, weighty issue. We're not going to play paper games or even debate on the issue.
Is it your understanding that they'll bring it up today?
You're bringing that up this afternoon?
Thank you.